Welcome to the latest Gina's Gems. It's been a minute, but we're back here today with Greg Norton, our national practice leader. Fun fact, Greg, you were actually my very first guest on Gina's Gems, so welcome back.
Thanks, Gina.
So, the MMA ADL practice conducts a leaves and time away from work survey on a biennial basis. And our most recent survey, which was captured at the end of 2024, showed that the top two challenges for large employers are compliance and the employee experience in that order. No surprise there. And obviously, they go hand in hand. So, Greg, can you share your perspective of what's going on in the marketplace?
Yeah, well, we know compliance is a challenge. Anyone in this space knows what's happening with all the states introducing their own legislation. So that's a huge challenge because it changes. New states add, every year they adjust. So it becomes a real challenge just to keep up with all that. But in addition to that, the employee experience piece puts all these changes put the pressure on the vendors, right? And they put the pressure on the employer because the volume has gotten so much more intense. And together with a more intense volume plus a newer, more complex ecosystem, it just creates challenges for everyone involved in administration of these programs.
So, yeah, so to that point, I know you shared with me that you recently participated in an employer focus group. Shout out to our monthly Let's Talk Absence series. And it was specific to building a better partnership with the vendor community, to your point. So I'm curious to hear what employers at that forum were saying.
Yeah, this was very interesting to me and when we participated in this forum. So 50% of the employers said they were going out to bid, and we had about 20 employers in the group. So half of them, which is really high, really unusual for a survey sample of that size. And then the other thing we did, we asked them the question, how would you grade your administrator, your insurance company, your TPA, A, B, C, D, or F? And we thought the over-under might be C minus, but the reality is that half or below, at or below C minus. Several Fs, a couple Ds, bunch of Cs, not that many As, not that many Bs. So this was also across the vendor ecosystem. It wasn't just, okay, five of the participants are with one vendor. Each vendor had pluses and minuses. It was very interesting. So without question, that was very surprising.
Yeah, that surprises me too. Why do you think that was the case?
Well, again, going back to this whole complexity discussion, everyone is challenged across the board. As I mentioned, the vendors are challenged, the employers are challenged. We as advisors are challenged, right, to help our clients keep up with everything that's happening. So more than ever, now is the time for a regular cadence to manage the program. Maybe an audit is required to understand what the root causes are. Maybe there's other process reviews, interviews of managers and so forth, and employees that go through the system so that we can find actionable information to help improve. But unless there's regular maintenance, regular attention to the programs, any vendor can potentially do a really bad job. Any vendor also can potentially do a really good job, which is also an interesting kind of finding, is that we work with almost every vendor in the space that's suitable for large employers. And each of these vendors that we work with has client relationships that are really solid, really strong, where the client's going to give them an A. But the same vendor may also have another client where they're giving them an F or a C. So we know that they all can do it. I think that what it really points to is that the management of the program on a group basis, on an employer, vendor, advisor basis, on a regular basis, really will help make a difference.
Yeah, and it's interesting whenever I'm talking to a prospective client and going through our scope of services and looking at things in its entirety and holistic way. And yet, at the end of the day, I feel like so many times we end up focusing really on the vendor management piece. That's where our account teams end up spending so much of their time. So, what would you suggest for employers as far as the best approach to manage their vendors?
Yeah, players need to insist on performance guarantees and SLAs. They need to make sure that their leadership, for example, is aware of the volume, how many employees are being touched every day, every year, going out on a leave. And if the employee experience is not up to par, then that's going to create, feelings towards the employer that the employer doesn't want. They want to have employees engaged. They want to have employees feel good about working for their employer, and when they need to take a leave, they want to make sure that it's handled properly. So explaining that to leadership is a big part of this, because a lot of times it may be they need more resources, people to help manage it at the employer level, or maybe they need more budget to enhance, some of the services they're getting from the marketplace. But we have to educate the leadership teams on the employer side so that they realize the impact this may have. I also think that the advisors that employers use, they have to be specialists in the space. A generalist is not capable of understanding all the nuance in this space. 10 years ago, maybe, but today, definitely not. It's just as complex in many ways as healthcare has gotten. We know healthcare is incredibly complex. It feels like the whole leave ecosystem is morphing into more of a healthcare system with all this nuance, all this regulation, all this detail. So it's become much more of a challenge, right? So I think having someone helping you that's a specialty advisor, someone that really knows the space, is a big benefit for employers.
Do you know anyone who does that? You teed me up perfectly for a plug for our practice. That is what we do. We are specialists in the space. So if you'd like to learn any more about what we do and how we work with our clients, or if you'd like to see the executive summary from that leave and time away from work survey that I mentioned, feel free to reach out to me here on LinkedIn, and keep looking for the next Gina's Gems. And Greg, thanks so much for coming back. Great to see you, and thanks for sharing your perspective.
Thanks, Gina.